Hello everyone. Today we are going to see about the topic that is related with that of pathology which can take place to that of the uterus. So from the pathological point of view, general pathological point of view, there may be presence of some benign growth or there may be presence of some malignant growth. If benign growth it is present, then it is called as a uterine fibroid, and if commonest, that is it can be present in the uterus or it can be present in the cervix, that is the cervical fibroid. And if this growth it is in case of pedunculated, having peduncle, then it is called as a polyp. It is present in the uterus and uterine polyp. If some pedunculated growth which is present in the cervix, cervical polyp, that is same in the surgery. Then what if the malignant growth, if it is takes place to the commonest, if it is present to the cervix, then it is called as a CA cervix. That is this is the introduction part of it. So we are going to see about the uterine fibroid. So what is the definition of it? So uterine fibroid is also called as a leiomyoma or fibromyoma. It is a benign growth. Main important. It is a benign growth, not a non-cancerous growth or non-malignant. That what we have to important thing in your remember in your mind. So it is a tumor from the smooth muscles tissue that originates from the smooth muscle layer, that is myometrium of the uterus. So what we say here in this myometrium, what is part of myometrium? Uterus consists of three layers: inside, middle, outside. Inside it is called as endometrium. That is what you see in this diagram. White. Middle part it is called as myometrium, and outside it's called as a perimetrium. So whatever this benign growth, it is in this part, that is middle part of it is arises from the smooth muscle layer, that smooth muscle layer, that is the myometrium. So that is the definition. Now what are the causes of it is, so exactly cause it is unknown, but there may be some family history, there may be some genetic alterations, there may be hormones, or there may be some other chemicals which can be responsible for the causes of this one uterine fibroid. So what are the risk factors? Risk factors, what we say that it common is if there is a hereditary, that is again in some race it is quite common, pregnancy and the childbirth, and again nulliparity, obesity, and sometimes oral contraceptives can risk of this uterine fibroid. So next what we are going to say it about the types of the uterine fibroid, that is what we see in this diagram. So it is body or corporeal fibroids. What is meaning of it? If you see what are the parts of the uterus, this is the upper part, that is fundus of the uterus, this is the body of the uterus, or second word it is called as a corpus of the uterus. So again it is divided where it is present, whether it is inside, whether it is in between, whether it is outside of it. So depending upon the nomenclature it is given. So what we say in this, just say in this diagram, so it is the intramural or interstitial, that is in between, intramural, interstitial. Then if it is present inside of it is, then it is called as a submucous, and if it is outside, then that is subserosal fibroid. And sometimes it may, or some fibroids are having some pedicle, that what why this growth, that is pedunculated, some growth it is present, so that is pedunculated one. So cervical fibroid, what is meaning? If the fibroid, if it is present in the cervix, then it is called as a cervical fibroid. Depending upon the which parts of it is called as cervical fibroid. About the percentage, if we see, it is about 1 to 2%. Now what we are going to see about the secondary changes in the fibroid. Secondary changes, what it commonest, what is if the fibroid remain inside of it and if the proper treatment is not given, so it leads to the secondary changes, and as what we know from the pathological point of view, it leads to the some degeneration. So which type of the degeneration changes it can leads to? It can leads to the hyaline degeneration, cystic degeneration, then sometimes there is a calcification, fatty degeneration, red degeneration, and septic degeneration. These are the secondary changes in the fibroid. What we say in this diagram. If fibroid it remains untreated, it leads to the some secondary changes in the fibroid, that is degeneration. Or sometimes there may be chances of infection, atrophy, that is gets narrowed down, gets atrophied, necrosis can be taken place, there may be some vascular changes or the sarcomatous changes can also take place, that is here. So that is next one what we are going to see about the clinical features. So 75% of the uterine fibroid are remain asymptomatic, means does not produce any symptoms. But commonest symptoms which are presented over here, that is the menstrual abnormalities, that is menorrhagia, metrorrhagia, or irregular bleeding. That is simple what we know that. If we see, simple logic is that if the uterus it is present, the endometrium it is normal, but when the growth it is present, the growth it is more than the normal. There is no any problem for the hypothalamo pituitary ovarian axis. So no problem commonly with that of cycle. But where is the problem? Problem with that of discharge, because the surface area it is more due to that of fibroid. So it leads to more discharge but normal cycle, that is the menorrhagia. 30% of the patient present with this of menorrhagia. Menorrhagia where cycle is normal but discharge is more, and sometimes it may produces the metrorrhagia where there is a irregular bleeding, that is, and dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea, as we know that uterus when menstrual uterus has to contract. I mean, simple. If there is something fibroid, depending upon the size of it, it leads to the contraction. Contraction leads to the pressure on the nerves, and it leads to the dysmenorrhea. And if it is not present, then it may leads to the union of the ovum and the sperm. It may chances are that the implantation does not take properly sometimes, so leads to the infertility in 30% of the cases. Then pain in the lower abdomen, then abdominal swelling, and pressure symptoms, that is whatever the organs which are present in front of it. For example, if the size of the uterus is more, and as we know that this is the structure of the uterus, front it is the bladder, at back side it is the sigmoid bone. So if the size of this it is of that much size, that is if it is a growth which is present inside, so quite obvious it is going to have the pressure on the front structure, that is bladder, so it leads to some problem with that of urinary symptoms. Or if it has the pressure on the back side, it can present the symptoms related with that of pressure on the back, that is sigmoid colon. So these are the symptoms related with that of the clinical features of uterine fibroid.